Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us tonight for Ask the Expert. I'm Catherine, and I'm the virtual coordinator for the National Aphasia Association. The National Aphasia Association is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to promote public awareness and understanding of aphasia, to promote research that aims to improve the lives of people with aphasia, and to provide support to all persons with aphasia and their care partners. June is Aphasia Awareness Month, and so tonight we have a special evening planned and an extra special expert, Maura Silverman, the Executive Director of the NAA. She will start by highlighting some of the special activities and events taking place throughout June for Aphasia Awareness Month. And then she'll be sharing answers to the most frequently asked questions we receive at the NAA. We'll leave some time at the end of the webinar to answer your questions that come up tonight, and we may even ask you some questions as well. So please write your questions about tonight's topic. If you want more information about some of the questions that come up or about the Aphasia Awareness Month activities, you can put those questions in the Q&A section. Feel free to say hello or add a comment in the chat. And we are going to answer as many of your questions as we can tonight. If we think of other resources to share, we will certainly share those later as well. And if we don't get to your question, or if you have another question about aphasia at another time, please feel free to email us at answers@aphasia.org. And now I'm honored to introduce tonight's expert, Maura Silverman. Maura English Silverman has always been passionate about helping others. She is a speech-language pathologist with 35 years of experience working along the continuum of care in the area of adult neurogenic communication disorders. After working in hospitals and rehabilitation centers, she started a nonprofit aphasia center called Triangle Aphasia Project Unlimited, or TAP. Maura enjoys collaborating with aphasia advocates all over the world and has enjoyed many opportunities to serve, write, and speak on the subject. In 2009, Maura became the caregiver for her mom when she suffered a massive stroke at the age of 69. They learned about the true impact of aphasia on an individual, their families, friendships, life interests, and goals. Maura accepted the position of Executive Director of the NAA and is so grateful for the opportunity to serve the NAA, an organization that has been a beacon of hope and direction in her personal and professional life. So thanks for joining us. You're sharing your expertise with us tonight.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you for always doing such an amazing job of making people feel welcome, even if they already work here at the National Aphasia Association. So I feel very honored because I have spoke at the on Ask the Expert prior to starting at the NAA, and also since I've been here with some family stories and got to share a little bit of myself. So I feel very spoiled. But this is a special month, and we know that summer gets a little slow, but June is not slow at all. And we want to share some of the things that the NAA is doing to help you spread the word about aphasia. We are actively looking for ways that we can serve you all better, that we can do a better job of getting your passion and your interest out. So this is a great opportunity to answer some of the questions that come from people with aphasia, people who serve people with aphasia, and people who love people with aphasia. And we get those questions. So before we get started, I am going to share my screen. Catherine will be hanging out and also sharing information with me about, whoops, that did not click on share sound. So I'm going to do that again. You know what? It is not doing that because I had multiple people sharing screens. I am so sorry, y'all. That was one little trick on the on our Zoom setting that we have just figured out. So now it will work fine. Okay. So this month, as June, is National Aphasia Awareness Month, and I wanted to share a couple of the things, and starting with the theme of this month in 2024 is amplifying aphasia voices. That will be the first part, and then we'll be talking about frequently asked questions. Just wanted to remind you, hopefully you're getting the newsletter. If you're not getting the newsletter, please sign up. There's a place right on our website in the upper corner that says resources where you can sign up for our newsletter. But it will give you information and links for all of the programs that the NAA is running, and we'll continue to add to those. There are 3 main things happening in June. One is Movie Mondays, the other is Library Showcase Project, and the third is Amplify Aphasia Voices as a fundraising opportunity. The Movie Mondays have been great. We enjoyed The Disease Detective Looks at Aphasia from USC the first week. We were able to see Still Sophie. I hope you were able to join us this past Monday. It was phenomenal, and we'll continue to work with Sophie because she is remarkable. Please note that we cannot tape these movies, so you have to be present with the link because they are owned by somebody. This coming Monday is Aphasia the Movie with Carl McIntyre, and a couple more coming in right through July. So please check out our website and also keep in touch with our newsletter. The library showcase idea was really comes from people with aphasia and their ideas of getting the word out about aphasia to amplify aphasia voices all across the country. And of course, a really great way of doing that is to go into the library. People have local libraries, university libraries, and sometimes there's a bulletin board, other times there's a shelf. So this project allows people to create a display and share pictures on your social. We also are giving prizes for some of the displays. So such a really great way of reaching out into our network and saying, you shine the light on yourself, y'all. You are doing great things to get the word out about aphasia. In our library materials, which you can find on our website, there is an example of a library showcase success story, and that is from our friend Kitty. I don't know if you're with us, Kitty, because I can't see the participants here, but so impressive that Kitty wrote an email to her library asking for this on behalf of herself and the NAA, even suggested books that she would like to have on the display. The library was super positive, and she had follow-up. So that's just an example of what some people are doing across the country. Last, but unfortunately, certainly not least, is that the National Aphasia Association, since we are a nonprofit organization, truly need your support financially for us to continue to thrive, to grow, and to meet your needs, especially in our goals to help support you all more. And so we do have a fundraising effort going on. There's a couple different ways, actually. It's on our website under Amplify Aphasia Voices. It's got ideas for our personal one that we're doing, which is a megaphone where you can honor someone with aphasia, and we're making a virtual megaphone wall. So please think about doing that. It only costs $10 for one megaphone, and you get to honor someone you love or serve with aphasia. You could also do a Facebook fundraiser of your own, or on the NAA website, we have a way of starting your own fundraiser as well. So super easy. These flyers and everything are available also on our website. So please do everything you can to help us help you spread the word and amplify aphasia voices. All right, so how did this all come up? Well, I have been noticing since I started my job last year at the National Aphasia Association that there are many, many questions that are being asked over and over again. To me, that shows what we are not doing a good job at in terms of communicating those resources and what's available for you. Now, one of the things we know is that we can't answer every question, and we certainly don't have all the answers and resources at our fingertips, mainly because things keep growing and getting better all over the country. Every day I get a new provider email telling me that they're starting an aphasia group or we're starting a book club. It's a very exciting time in the world of aphasia. But we went around and pulled answers or questions from answers@aphasia.org, from our Facebook, from Ask the Expert, which we get a lot of questions, and also from groups that are on Facebook and in other places where people are really searching for those answers to really specific questions. So tonight, we are going to hit the most popular questions that people ask. We'll be able to record this and have it as a resource moving forward. But also, it really prompts us to look at what resources do we not have? Like, why are these questions coming up? And how can we do a better job of educating and making aware? Because that's our mission and that's what we're here for. So, you would be surprised that many people ask the question, what is aphasia? Now, it is nice that on our YouTube channel, and I will say, if you have not been to our YouTube channel, please go to youtube.com and subscribe, because it is really well organized with a lot of playlists. And these are things that families can share with their family members. If somebody has aphasia, if you're trying to explain it to somebody, if you're doing a presentation. And this is a really quick one called What is Aphasia?
So what exactly is aphasia? Aphasia is an acquired communication disorder. Acquired means that you're not born with aphasia. It's something that happens to people after a stroke, brain injury, or a neurological disorder called primary progressive aphasia. Aphasia impairs a person's ability to process language, but it doesn't affect their intelligence. People with aphasia are still just as smart, though they may have problems understanding language, speaking, reading, or writing. So how do you communicate with someone who has aphasia? First, be patient. Allow plenty of time for a response. Make sure you're speaking with and not for the person. Use simple, short sentences, and make sure you go to a quiet place to speak so there aren't a lot of distractions. People with aphasia may need to use communication tools such as an iPad or drawing with a pen and paper to get their point across. They may also use gestures or pantomime if they can't come up with a word. Next time you meet someone with aphasia, you'll remember that there's plenty you can do to be supportive and spread awareness. In fact, help us out and pass this video along. We all could use more understanding in this world. Thank you.
So I love that little video about what is aphasia, because it allows us to really simply get across the point that it is not intelligence and that there are things that people can do to help. So that's a great one to use. So another thing that comes up quite often, and I know some of the people that are on the call tonight know all too well, but why do people get aphasia? What is it caused by? Well, the one main thing is it's an acquired brain injury, which means you are not born with aphasia. Acquired brain injury means you acquire it later in your life. You can acquire this by a brain injury like a stroke. An ischemic stroke is a blood clot that breaks and blocks blood flow to part of the brain. You could have a hemorrhagic stroke, which is really what they call a bleed, where the blood goes and soaks into some of the areas and therefore impacts the abilities that are responsible in that area of the brain. You can get aphasia from a brain tumor, from a traumatic brain injury like a gunshot wound or a blunt trauma. Sometimes when you have those, you may also have some additional cognitive disturbances, but you can certainly have aphasia. And another way people don't think about often is you can get an aphasia from an infection. One of the areas that has come up a lot lately, especially since after Bruce Willis was diagnosed, is what about aphasia caused by a neurodegenerative or progressive disease process. And there has been a lot of challenges in the area of what does PPA mean and how is it different from a stroke-acquired aphasia? And what does PPA have to do with FTD? And all of those questions around something called primary progressive aphasia. As a matter of fact, those of us in the aphasia world had to come to the news and to social media and clarify so many errors in how people thought that if you had aphasia, that you automatically had memory problems or cognitive problems, because what they were talking about related to a progressive disease, not a stroke-induced aphasia. Well, in our search for questions about aphasia, PPA was probably one of the top areas that we had questions about, and for right reasons. You know, so many people have been hearing that terminology. So I have a couple things to share with you, and then also a plan to share with you. This lovely lady, Treasure, is a incredible researcher in the area of aphasia, in the area of PPA specifically. And so I've shared her video with us today.
Primary progressive aphasia is a neurological syndrome, and what it involves is a progressive or continuous decline in speech and language abilities, because it impacts the areas of the brain that control our speech and language. So what makes primary progressive aphasia, or PPA, different from a stroke or a traumatic brain injury is that it is degenerative, meaning we expect it to get worse over time, but it is caused usually by frontotemporal lobar degeneration or an underlying disease like Alzheimer's disease. And so it's a very complex type of degenerative disease that requires a really person-centered approach in diagnosing and treating.
What I love about Treasure's explanation of PPA is she admits that it's extremely complicated. And as a matter of fact, the terminology that has surrounded PPA over the last 10 to 15 years have been anywhere from syndromes to variants to FTD to other disease processes. So one of the things that we know is that the latest variant or subtype descriptions have more to do with what shows up or what part of language is affected by the degeneration of the brain. And there are three main variants to it, or three main subtypes, one being non-fluent variant. Sounds very similar, right, to non-fluent aphasia, which is when the degeneration is here in the frontal cortex, and that affects your ability to speak clearly. So that will be hesitant, non-fluent speech and affects syntax, etc. Semantic variant PPA, look where it is in the brain, but it is bilateral in the brain, is also semi-frontal, but it is also about meaning, where meaning is affected in the brain. So it will be affecting people's ability to name and know what something is called. And logopenic, you can see, is also going to be up here, where you have some more difficulty with comprehension, reading, etc. Our guru at the National Aphasia Association is a dedicated volunteer, Becky Kyom, and she shared with us this amazing slide, which really says that FTD is kind of an umbrella term, and it affects or overrides the dementia syndromes where the neurodegenerative disease starts in the frontal region of the brain, frontal and temporal region of the brain. So in those three areas of frontotemporal dementia, or FTD, it's not all language. As a matter of fact, there are a behavioral variant of FTD and ALS and progressive supranuclear palsy, which you might hear of as PSP, and corticobasal syndrome, are all things that don't have anything to do with language. And that's why it's been so confusing. We have many, many resources and initiatives going on in the area of PPA, but given that there were so many questions, we decided to come up with a special plan. And this is something that will be ongoing and also immediate. So because we want to answer more questions about PPA, but don't want to take this whole Ask the Expert to do it, we added some other things for you. So if you are interested in that PPA area and you are signed up for the PPA chats, you will get information on an upcoming program on June 28th. That's 1 week after the original PPA chats this month. And this special is going to be a Q&A for PPA chats. So very similar to this, the frequently asked questions. We also have nailed down both Treasure and Becky to do an Ask the Expert on PPA in September of 2024. There are things already on our playlist that are so good. I just went back recently and did a little scan, and we have on our YouTube channel a basic what is primary progressive aphasia, but we also have two expert Ask the Experts. One is a panel with Becky and a whole bunch of experts from across the country. And the other one, which I love very much, is the one with Dr. Maya Henry. So an hour worth of just chock full of great information about person-centered care for people with primary progressive aphasia. PPA chats will continue. They are separate from our online programs of other groups, but if somebody has primary progressive aphasia, they can attend our other groups and programs too. The other people that have had strokes might not be very interested or want to participate in the PPA chats, but you do have to sign up if you are. And I think that Catherine's going to put that link in the chat for us. The other very cool thing that has happened since in the last just couple months, when there was another Hollywood person diagnosed with PPA, is that we got a task force together and we actually had a national consortium of people, experts from all across the country. I was a little intimidated. It was just amazing people that were all on this Zoom call to try to make the nomenclature or the names all more accurate and similar. So we always give resources like AFTD, which is the Association of Frontotemporal Degeneration. What we want to do is make sure that we're all using the same terminology. We've also started to develop programs for education and training of speech pathologists, because we know that not every speech pathologist is aware of how to work with somebody who has primary progressive aphasia. We also have started a list of speech pathologists who consider PPA an expert in that they feel like that is one thing that they do very well, so that you can find programs and speech pathologists that specialize in PPA. We are also updating the content. We're going to have a special PPA section and tab, which we currently don't have on our website. And I do want to say that so much of this is because of the support, the direct support we are getting from our donors and people that are just really passionate about this. And we really appreciate that. We couldn't do it without you. Okay, so moving away from PPA and just talking aphasia in general, which does include PPA, but what happens when someone is diagnosed with aphasia? Well, this is a common question for us, and we like to talk about it as a continuum. But I will say, when I started in the field, that continuum was very, very, very long, and it was also very strict, because there was only inpatient acute care, inpatient rehab, and outpatient therapy. And that is just not true anymore, because there has been so many blossoming opportunities for people with aphasia that allow this continuum to keep going and going as long as the person with aphasia is wants it to go. So in traditional programming, an event like a stroke, a brain tumor, whatever you have, would require assessment, evaluation of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. Also, all the other areas that go along. And then moving into acute care, outpatient rehab, and all the opportunities from aphasia centers to groups, online programs to camps, and all of the things that are available now, which you can find conveniently in our provider directory on our website. Treatment used to be, when I went in the field, and I actually realized I have to update my bio because it's 36 years, but was very impairment based. So you have trouble with this, then we're going to work on this. And one of the things we realize is that, yes, training skills is important, but it's also very important to help the person with language in their life, which is super important. So one of my mentors, Dr. Roberta Allman, came up with a checklist. And I always like to share this because I think it's just a good reminder for us to say, have we been provided with everything that our superhero speech pathologist has for us, right? So we come in and we are going to evaluate and we are going to treat. These are things you want to watch out for. And you want to call people out on these things to say, has the person connected me with other people who have my problem? So if you have aphasia, then you should be connected with other people who have aphasia. Just like if you had a certain type of cancer, they would hook you up with people who also had that type of cancer. You could, the second is, it's called augmentative and alternative communication. But what it really means is supports. Excuse me, my dog decided she's going to whine. Sorry about that. Speaking of life participation. So AAC is not necessarily a device. It is not necessarily a tool that or an app that you are given by the speech pathologist. It is instead, can I have a support for all the things that I need to be able to communicate? So does the nurse know I might not be able to use my call bell? Does when I fill out the menu, do I have a support to help with the menu? And then do I have a script for ordering pizza? All of those things. P is partner training. This is another thing that you should be equipped with, is the people you love trained on how to communicate with you. Do they know how to use supports, how to help you, how not to fill in for you, and not to do anything that's going to make communication harder for you? And then finally, has the provider provided you with education and resources? Do you have the information on the NAA or on an aphasia center that's near you, or online programs like virtual connections and other things? So that was one question. Another question, and I can replace husband with son, mother, brother. My husband had a stroke a year ago, and the MD, the doctor, told us that he wouldn't make any progress after 1 year. Is that true? No, it's not true. It is old, antiquated thinking, because we have learned so much about the brain. It is so important that people don't get wrapped up in that anniversary, that stroke anniversary, as any kind of indicator that that's where they're going to end up. Because a brain can continue to learn, grow, organize, everything with neuroplasticity. And neuroplasticity is appropriate and used in damaged brains, old brains, every kind of brain. So one of the articles that started that was called Principles of Experience-Dependent Neuroplasticity. I did a whole thing on neuroplasticity with Aphasia Cafe. So if you're interested, I can get you that information. But basically, it talks about the most important things. Use it or lose it. excuse me. Use it or lose it. Use it and improve it. Make sure you have lots of opportunities. Make sure that it's relevant to the person. And it's really important that the family understands this. Another approach that shows that that answer is no, no with a capital N is that it is no longer treating a person with aphasia with only an impairment-based approach. Yes, we help you get better at speaking words and reading and verbs and all the things that will add up to better communication. But what really helps is to understand the person, know who they are, understand the consequences of their aphasia on their life, and help them re-engage. My personal feeling is this needs to be done before the person gets disengaged, and then we don't have to re-engage someone. So trying to keep them connected with friends and family and have all those people trained. So life opportunities is what will do better therapy than any structured one-on-one. And I will say that 100%, and I am a speech therapist. So I always say, other than, so the question was, other than speech therapy, what else can I do to get better or keep improving? One of my colleagues in the physical therapy arena always said, life is therapy, therapy is not life. And I just love that. I think it should be on everybody's vision board. Your life has so many opportunities for speaking, for reading, for writing, for listening. So if you're one of those people that are going home and 5 minutes before they go to their speech therapy appointment is doing their quote homework, we got to change things up, because life is the opportunities. Bible study, somebody's a volunteer job, answering the phone, writing thank you notes. These are the things that are real life. But what I think about is, how do you seek out those communicative opportunities when you've just had a stroke? Well, I put together some ideas here and a little later in the presentation. One is to find communicative opportunities in every modality. So when I work with somebody with aphasia, I put that plus sign up there, and I put reading, writing, listening, and speaking on their board. And I said, every day, I want you to be able to circle, check, put a smiley face on each one of those. If you even commit to 15 minutes a day of reading, writing, listening, and speaking in any functional, meaningful way, you will continue to get better. Use language apps and computer programs. We're going to talk a little bit more about that too. Use the right side of your brain. We have had performance things on art and music and singing. We've had Ask the Experts. We know the power of the right side of your brain taking over functions that are not working on the left. Join programs online. You know, COVID made things open up so that people were able to join conversation groups, book clubs, any things, parenting groups, things that have to do with their personal life. And so please look everywhere you can for conversation groups and programs online. And if you need help, ask us. We do have a provider search, but if you can't find it there, just write answers at aphasia.org. Say, I need help. I live in this area, and we will do our best to help personally match you with programs that work for you. Join an in-person aphasia center. When I started the Triangle Aphasia Project 21 years ago, there were like 13 speech aphasia groups in the country, 13. And now there's multiple in every state. So as aphasia centers in real life come up, programs, ICAPs, camps, join and learn about them, because you connect with other people and your communication will get much better. Volunteer. Do something that allows you to use communication functionally. If you can work and have an adapted support, please do that. If you need help with that, please let us know. And what my favorite is, also join research efforts. That's a great way to give back and help people who may not have had a stroke or need stuff helping now. All right, another question, ding ding, comes up all the time. What kinds of apps or computer programs are best for aphasia? Every time I'm in a group when we talk about apps, and we actually have a group here at the NAA of technology, that when one person brings up an app or a program, everybody's, oh, wait, what is that? I want to write that down. And what you have to remember is that it really has to do with what works for you. There are apps popping up every day. I met with 2 different people today who had new apps for and computer programs that work on multimodal language. So it's hard to say what's best, but I did found a video that I think you will really enjoy, and a way for everybody to search what programs are appropriate for them. It is a grant-funded program called Aphasia Software Finder, and they keep it pretty updated because it is a grant fund. And I'm just going to show you what they had to say about it.
Hello, and welcome to the Aphasia Software Finder. The aim of this website is to bring together in one place all the aphasia therapy apps and software in the English language. Our hope is that this website will help you find the right app and software for you. We've done our best to make this website as aphasia friendly as possible, but the site has lots of information, and if it's difficult to find what you're looking for, we suggest asking someone to help. Every person with aphasia is different, and not all programs will help all types of aphasia. It's very important to identify and find the right app for your needs. If you're not sure, please ask for help from a speech and language professional. I'm going to give a brief overview of what is available on this website.
I'm going to stop there because the video is a little bit longer, but we will link this video in our recording. And it does go over exactly how to find every aphasia app and software. You can also do searches so that you can find out, does it cost any money? Does it work on my device? You know, is it personable, so you can make it personalized to you. So it's a really great little video. And as I said, it's grant funded, so they stay very up to date. So we will include this Aphasia Software Finder. It's my favorite little tool that's available. The other place we can find these things is in our digital resources section. Now, I will say we are updating this page on our website, but it's under this section that's called resources, and it says helpful materials. And it has some apps and assistive technology ads here that you can find. The bottom line is, as I said, so many different things are coming up all the time. We hear of things like Tactus therapy and Lingraphica and constant therapy and Pictello to tell stories. There's so many of these, and they all can be helpful in practice and drill, but they can also help to compensate for areas of challenge that you might have. There are no, this is the best, it really has to do with what works for you. Another question that comes up all the time is, what can I take? What can I take to make it better, right? Are there medications that are used in the treatment of aphasia? This has been an area of recent development. Unfortunately, there's still no medical cure for aphasia, but according to the Mayo Clinic, there are studies going on specifically with medications that help increase blood flow, enhance recovery, or replace depleted chemicals in your brain. So working specifically on the neurotransmitters on your brain. At this point, they are not being prescribed for the average person, but they are being involved in research as well. So I'm going to show you a little bit how to get to research. All right. So another thing you may have heard of is, great. Another thing that comes up all the time is some of the brain stimulation activities that are going on. And boy, it seemed like this came out of nowhere, and it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. There are transcranial magnetic stimulation and transcranial direct current stimulation. The good news are both of these treatments are non-invasive, and they are showing some improvement. Right now, there's a lot of universities that are studying this, and you can find that information in the research section, which I'm going to share. Are there holistic or alternative treatments available for aphasia? I'm very big on this one. I really think it's important that we don't look only to Western medicine, and that we look at things like meditation, acupuncture, hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Again, there hasn't been a lot of one-to-one success in research, except for in the area of meditation. Mindfulness meditation holds great promise for increasing attention and helping in neural pathways. There are more and more research studies on the use of mindfulness, and I encourage you to look at our mindfulness meditation programs at the NAA and the resources that are available, thanks to our leader in that area right now, Seth Brunner, who is also on our board. Of course, one of the questions that come up often is, this has changed our relationship, our family roles, and our loved one's identity. Obviously, this could be a complete Ask the Expert, and it has been a complete Ask the Expert at the National Aphasia Association, because it's a huge area, and we must pay attention, more attention, to the changes, the emotional toll, and the grief that is part of the aphasia journey. I hope you have watched some of the Ask the Experts with Deborah Meyerson and Steve Zuckerman, and read their book, Identity Theft. There has also been an Ask the Expert from Dr. Rebecca Hunting-Pompon, who is just amazing and talked to us about stress and depression, resilience, and aphasia. Mental health support and training counselors to see people with aphasia, and also to help with friendship, which is a key to reducing some of the mental health challenges that result in loss and grief when relationships change. One of the biggest challenges, and I saw somebody asked a question about finding a mental health provider who is trained in working with people with aphasia. There are efforts going on all over the country in different pockets where we are training mental health providers. We also are making those trainings available so that if you have a counselor you already like and want to use, to see if they'd be open to having training for aphasia. Again, I think it needs to be a little personalized for the type of aphasia that we have, but a lot of the aphasia centers across the country have active trainings involved, and we can help you find that. If you want to tell us what area you're in, we can help you find that if you want to send us an email. I think this summarized all the questions on care partners, which is, I'm a care partner, help. There are often questions on the relationship, the issues that are involved. And I think it works best with Carl McIntyre, who is in Aphasia the movie next Monday, who famously said, what happens to one happens to two, or what happens to one happens to all. And it just shows that if you have aphasia, it is a family diagnosis. Everybody in the, if you think of aphasia as a communication disorder, everyone else has a challenge in communicating too. We have a couple of resources right on our website. One is the Aphasia Caregiver Guide, which you can download for free. You can also order an actual copy off of Amazon if you'd like as well. We'll be updating that again, but it is fairly good right now, so I would definitely suggest you do that. We also have multiple Ask the Experts on care partnering. There are some care partner support groups and corners, Facebook groups, and more. If you let us know where you are, we can help you find somebody. But I think it's really important, as my friend and colleague Abby Simon of iCommunicare.com, who works a lot with care partners, says, care partner is only a part of who you are, but it certainly can be very much a big part of who you are. One of the questions is, my husband hates going to speech therapy. I know he needs it, but how can I make him go? My first question is why? And it is so important that we sit and have a conversation before we get too far into working with somebody for 8 sessions, 10 sessions, 3 months, and say, yeah, we didn't have a good experience with that person. You wouldn't keep going to a doctor or going to a restaurant that you didn't enjoy. We are service providers, but everybody clicks with different people. So find out what is the core of the problem with the person going to speech therapy. Are the materials too simple? Do they feel stupid? Do they not have a functional approach? Find out what the person needs. And I like to use this, which is from one of my colleagues in Australia, Dr. Linda Worrell, who is not just a mentor, but just an incredibly passionate woman who came up with the 7 habits of highly effective aphasia therapists. And there's nothing, earth-shattering here, but it is very similar to what we talked about in CAPE, is that you need to prioritize relationships with the people living with aphasia. So the sooner you can get your friends in and your family members in to learn about aphasia, the better. Making sure the person is connected with aphasia groups. And think about living successfully with aphasia and making sure that the person with aphasia is helping set the goals. Have you set the goals, or does somebody say, this is what we're going to work on? Also, make sure that everybody gets access to support, whether they have funds to do it or not. That's why we have university clinics and aphasia centers. Make sure you're paying attention to low mood and depression, because it is so prevalent in aphasia, and always give people with aphasia a voice. As we're wrapping up some of these, I want to make sure we have time for questions, but one of the most common questions is, my insurance company is cutting me off from speech therapy. What now? I'm going to give you some really practical advice. And the first one's going to be, call your insurance company, ask for an appeal. If you like the therapist, you want to keep going, fight for it a little bit. It's important. You can contact universities that have speech programs. The students may be doing the therapy, but they're going to be motivated and inspired and supervised. Set up create a communication support team. We also talked about this at a recent Lunch and Learn. I'm happy to share how to do that, where you get people help you with your programming. Set up a schedule, like we talked about, for computer apps, for stimulation and reading. Search the provider network. Maybe you can find an aphasia center in your area, or a camp, or a group. Go to some of these online programs, find which ones you love, and keep going. And then get out for real life participation. The last thing is get involved in research. And it would behoove us to talk about finding aphasia centers or studies, because a lot of people ask about them. And there are lots of ways to do that. And some of these links, again, this is all recorded, but we will make sure you get these links. We have something right on our website under Research Portal, which you can see research grants that are available. You can post a study, and you can also find available studies. NIH has a website, a page on research, and you can search aphasia and find all the aphasia studies that are going on that have been posted. Universities in your area, tons of universities are doing aphasia research. Aphasia Access and other aphasia listservs will also have information. So we left just enough time, with 10 minutes left, to find out what are some of the questions that you have that may not have been asked in here, that maybe are your frequently asked questions, or people that you love. And then we may have some questions for you if we have time. I need a drink.
Thank you, Maura. That
Of course.
so much helpful information. I'm glad that we'll have the recording up on the YouTube channel so that people can go back and watch this, and we'll put the links in as well. We have a question about PPA, and you had mentioned some of the other neurodegenerative processes that it can be under the umbrella of. What about mild cognitive impairment? Do you have any information about that? And
Yeah, that's actually going to be also covered in some of the PPA training, our Ask the Expert, because we are seeing that people are being diagnosed earlier than they were before. Doctors are understanding, but sometimes it doesn't quite fit a diagnosis of PPA or a neurodegenerative disease process, thus causing the PPA, and that instead they can identify specific cognitive impairments. The one thing about PPA is that language will be impaired first. So when you think of somebody who gets diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, oftentimes that's memory, it's executive functioning or problem solving. But with PPA, it's word finding, it's losing the ability to say a word or saying the wrong sound with the word. And I remember the first person that ever walked into TAP when I started it said, "I have this." And she's looking at the word aphasia. She said, "I know everything. I have this." And it ended up that she did eventually get a diagnosis of PPA, but she was initially misdiagnosed over and over and over again before somebody said, "Oh, she's having word finding problems. She's having anomia." And that's what caused all the initial problems. And eventually she did end up with some motor issues and she had some cognitive decline. But the first symptom being aphasia was kind of the key for that. So it's a really good question.
yeah, and you had said there are going to be a lot more conversations and activities going on this month and beyond, so people can learn more about PPA and talk with others. And so that's going to be a great resource. I would love to pose a question to the participants tonight while they can start to think and put some of their thoughts in the chat, maybe while we ask you another question. But I would love to know, what do you wish people knew about aphasia? We're trying to increase awareness about aphasia. What do you wish people knew? So if you have any thoughts, please write them in the chat.
That's a great question. And I think what goes along with that is, what do you maybe wish you had known? What was some good advice you got? We don't like to focus on the bad, but, is there something you wish somebody hadn't said to you? Those are really important. So what do you wish other people knew about aphasia?
Another question that we get quite a bit is, we have all these online conversation groups. Are they recorded, or is it something that you would have to go to live? What's the process for that? And if they're not recorded, what's the reason for that?
That's a really great question. And I think one of the things that the National Aphasia Association prioritizes is your confidentiality and your privacy. And so we do not record our groups. So whether it's Aphasia Cafe or the Wellness and Aphasia group that Catherine does, or the technology group, one of the things we notice is people really need that safe place to be able to communicate. I will say that many of our Ask the Expert topics and many of our content ideas come from discussions that are in those groups where people say, "You know what? We need to learn more about this," or "We need to get more information out about this." So many of our initiatives are a direct result of things that you have either emailed to us or shared within groups. And I think that you should know that the National Aphasia Association has been around for 37 years, thanks to Dr. Martha Sarno. So this organization's a year older than my career. But one of the things we have always been is you ask us something, we give you something. You ask you something. So it's very transactional. One of the commitments that we've made as an organization is we want to get to know you. We want to see what you all need. So it is essential that you feel comfortable saying, hey, can I get a Zoom call? Can we chat? We want this to be interactional and bonding and relationship building so that the NAA could continue this mission for years and years and years, and that we're the beacon, the person you contact first for data and information on aphasia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we say the NAA community, we mean it. I mean, it is real
Yes.
people, boots on the ground, and it's a really amazing group of folks. And truly, if you email answers@aphasia.org, Mara will be sitting there responding to you. So it's real people. We did get a comment in the chat about what you wish other people knew about aphasia, so I'm going to share that.
Great.
It affects many different groups of people. Sometimes it's hard for the public to understand that there are many young stroke survivors, and it is not just the elderly.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. Who said that?
Elise.
Elise, thank you so much. I'm glad you brought that because that is another question I had on, but it was getting too long. Is that a question that we get often is what can you recommend for young people with aphasia? And to be honest, when I went in the field, it was very infrequent that we saw somebody who was young who had aphasia, but now people are surviving an AVM or a stroke at a young age, and the services just were not put in line for them. And so we had a lot of education and training to do. And I love that. I think that's a really important point, is that aphasia doesn't discriminate. Doesn't matter what, gender you are, what color you are, what race you are, what religion you are, what age you are. Anybody can get aphasia.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And just like Mara said, this is the sort of feedback and information that's so good and important for the NAA to hear. We've heard from folks who are young stroke survivors with aphasia. I love a group that's just, for people who are going through
Yes.
something similar to me. So that's the sort of initiative that our programming teams are working on too. So.
I'm so glad you said that, Catherine, too, because it's a direct, we collect all this stuff. And now that there's an executive director, I mean, there hasn't been in quite a bit of time. So now that we have this really engaged board and these incredible volunteers who I hope you're seeing on Spotlight every week, I'm sharing all their stories because I just feel so blessed to be a part of this team. We take what we hear and what you guys say, and we turn it around and putting them into a program. And we collaborate with all kinds of organizations and universities across the country. So we also couldn't do it without them.
And on that note, it is already just about 8 o'clock, so I am going to wrap us up. So thank you everyone for joining us tonight for Ask the Expert. As we've been insinuating, this was only just scratching the surface of the questions we receive, but these are the common themes and questions that we hear quite often. So again, feel free to email the NAA your questions at answers@aphasia.org. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank tonight's expert, Maura. Maura is clearly a wealth of knowledge. She has been wholeheartedly dedicated to the mission of the NAA since being selected as executive director and even before she was executive director. And she's been working tirelessly behind the scenes to support, give back to the NAA community, improve resources, programs, the website, research, and more. So thank you, Maura, for everything you're doing for the NAA community.
I'm going to stop and thank Catherine for always just being so positive and just a breath of fresh air in every environment she's in. But I also want to thank you all. I know she's going to do that as well, but you all are the reason. You are our reason. You're our why. So thank you.
Absolutely. And so if you want more information on other virtual events like this one or our conversation groups, go to aphasia.org/online online events. We do have our next Ask the Expert coming up Thursday, July 11th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Our expert, Avi Golden, is going to be talking about outdoor recreation programs, so perfect for the summer. And then if you have any questions, comments, feedback, specifically about Ask the Expert, feel free to email me at catherine@aphasia.org. So thank you all for joining us for this special Ask the Expert in honor of Aphasia Awareness Month. We hope to see you next time. Have a great evening.